This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
So we missed the week, and Strohs, our podcast is the only one where missing a week is abnormal for me. I've done a lot of podcasts over the years, but this is probably the one I take the most seriously. So it feels weird to be 2 weeks removed from our last episode.
When I was getting ready this morning, I was like, "Oh my god, I missed this so much." It's so weird. You take a week off, man. It's you just kind of
1 week,
long for
and I was already really looking forward to doing this today. So Strohs, you got a dumb impulse buy that we got to get to a little bit later. And
is it dumb though?
Yes.
He's like, yes.
and we also got to get to the Pistons, I think officially in rebuild. So we'll talk about what that looks like a little bit. But boy, how about MSU football, huh?
I can't help but laugh at these Spartans.
So I'm not a diehard Michigan fan by any means. I'm very casual. So I feel like for the most part, look at this whole MSU situation from a relatively objective point of view. And with D'Antonio stepping down when he did and them getting shot down by Luke Fickell, I think we were already approaching a time period where it was fair to ask if the standard changed for MSU, because D'Antonio had gotten them to a level of national relevance. And I think it's fair to ask Astros, are we officially done with that? Is MSU officially done with national relevance? That doesn't mean they can never get there again. But in the moment, I don't think that that's the MSU standard anymore.
Where we're at today, I don't think Michigan State will ever ascend to the heights that D'Antonio had them, where they were winning Rose Bowls. Fair. Oh, dude, I don't know if we in the next 10 years, do you think we see them playing a Rose Bowl?
That's fair.
I don't think that happens. I don't think they're part of the BCS. I don't think they're part of the college football playoff. I don't think they're part of any of that going forward, at least for a time being.
Yeah, I don't think that that's where they are right now either. I guess when I ask the question, is that standard has it officially changed? Is it officially over? My thought is, Michigan's a great example of a school where they're probably not really nationally relevant right now, but anytime they fire a coach because of their brand, they have an opportunity to jump right back into national relevance. And that's not, that's not because Jim Harbaugh is anything special. That's just the brand of Michigan. Michigan State didn't have that brand. I think was in the process of building it up, but it almost feels like they're back to square one. Maybe they've gained a little bit because of the Mark D'Antonio years, but with the struggle of the last few years combined with the way he left and, not giving them an opportunity to really pursue a coach at an ideal time. I think it's the reset button. Now, I'm not willing to say they can never get back to where they were under Mark D'Antonio because, sometimes you hire the right guy and he can get you there. And, Michigan State's not a MAC school. I don't even think they're Minnesota, who PJ Fleck got in a good spot. I think they're closer than Minnesota was when they hired PJ Fleck. Is that fair? I definitely don't think they're in a worse spot.
I wouldn't say that they're in a worse spot, but I don't think they're in a better spot. This recruiting class isn't great. They don't have a quarterback to build any type of offense around right now. Mark D'Antonio, I think, put them in a really, really bad spot with the way he stepped down and the way he left. And look, it seemed as though it was supposed to be Tressel getting the interim job, then possibly coaching his way into this position for a year. It looks like that's what D'Antonio wanted. If it wasn't that, it was going to be Luke Fickell. And Luke Fickell shunned MSU. So I'm not sure. You can read into that whatever you want. Maybe MSU isn't as good as Cincinnati. So I don't know.
The one thing I want to say, and I agree, it looks really bad when the Cincinnati coach turns you down. The one thing I want to say is timing does matter. Mm-hmm. Does Luke Fickell turn down MSU if it's at a more opportune time?
If he can go out there and get some of his own recruits, I don't think he does. But stepping into this job, again, I don't think that they're any better than Minnesota was when PJ Fleck took over. And I think it's going to be an uphill climb for Mel Tucker. And everybody's probably scratching their head and scratching their ass like, who the hell is Mel Tucker? This is a guy who went 5-7 at Colorado last year. He has 1 year of head coaching experience underneath his belt as a college coach, and he went 5-7. I don't know if he's going to be able to spin a miracle here at MSU, but man, it seems like he was obviously the second or the third choice, maybe the fourth choice. I think Bill Beekman, I think the board of trustees, I think Mark D'Antonio, I think everybody screwed this football program and set them behind the eight ball.
Yeah, no, I think that you're almost looking at this year as a totally lost year, and that's concerning, especially when you're not in love with your coach in the first place. I just think MSU, although it was a short run, I do think there's value in a stint of national relevance that they had, because a lot of teams, they don't ever get to that level. They don't, like, how many teams have been in the college football playoff, and MSU is one of them. So I do think they built the brand. Unfortunately for them, they watched it fall a little bit before Mark D'Antonio left them in such a rough circumstance. And then there's also, the supposed comments that Fickle turned it down because of what did he say? It wasn't the atmosphere, the culture. But I think culture was the word.
This is the thing too, though. You're 10 years removed from when Michigan State played in the college football playoff. You're 10 years removed from that. That's a long time. That was what, 2010 when they played? I mean,
was it that long ago? No, dude. It wasn't that long ago. You are misplacing it. It was like 2015. Maybe. Was
it?
I'm not sure, but I know it wasn't 2010 because
no, you're right. It was 2015. I apologize. You're right. It was removed. So 5 years removed. 5 years removed.
I mean, there's distance. There's no doubt about that. But my point is, like, Minnesota, when they hired PJ Fleck, was much more than 5 years removed from any national relevance.
That's true. No, that's absolutely true.
So I don't foresee them getting back to the levels Mark D'Antonio had them at the peak anytime soon.
Well, let me ask you this: Mel Tucker, PJ Fleck,
obviously,
right? But going into picking that coach, PJ Fleck had a track record. You've seen what he was doing.
I would be blown away if Mel Tucker's the guy. I would be blown away.
I would too.
Like, I already look at it. I still look at it as like a 1-year reset button. I mean, I don't know. I think it's fair to point out the leadership at Michigan State is not one that gives you any confidence. But I could see them going in an entirely different direction. I could see Michigan State winning 3, 4, maybe 5 games this year and trying to push the reset button at a more convenient time.
I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of what they do specifically for this season. Again, you don't necessarily have a quarterback. Is it going to be Rocky Lombardi? Is he going to be your guy? Who are you building around to kind of shape this offense? I think that defense will help keep this team in games, because it really seemed like over the course of the last couple of years, Michigan State's defense has been their calling card. And I think there's probably enough talent and enough talented guys still left in that program that you can do some things on defense. And especially because Mel Tucker is a defensive guy, I think you're going to have your most success with that defense. But offense has killed this team for at least the last 2-3 seasons. And now you go into this year without really a number one guy as your QB. I don't know what you're going to do with your running backs. I just don't know. Again, same boat as you. I see this team struggling most of the year. Maybe a 3-9 type season where you're hitting the reset button. You're probably trying to clean some house. You're probably going to have to get some more of your guys in. And again, the way Mark D'Antonio did this, he never really gave Mel Tucker a chance to really succeed at this upcoming season because he can't go out and get anybody. Signing day is already over. So unless you're getting guys in the transfer portal, I'm not really sure how you're going to bring anybody in here. So it really seems like Michigan State is behind the 8 ball, and whether that be D'Antonio's fault, whether it be Beekman's fault, whether it be the board of trustees, whether it be the program as a whole, that sucks, man.
I don't think we've talked MSU on this podcast today, and I don't think we'll do it very often. So that speaks to what this is. Of course, keep the conversation going. Has the standard for MSU officially changed? At Brendan Riley _ on Twitter, at Amar Strohs. Strohs, we do got to touch on in about 10, 15 minutes the Pistons front office, the faith you have in them, and what looks to be officially for the first time in, 15 years of rebuild. But first, you got to tell us about this impulse buy.
So as you know, I just kind of went through this divorce and everything was finalized, and I ended up signing my mortgage for a condo that I purchased. And of course, when you get a new place, and believe me, when I tell you I left my wife everything, I gave her everything. My bed, my sheets, basically everything but my clothes she got. My TVs, all of it. The only thing I got was my PlayStation 4, which I don't even use anymore. And I've got sweatshirts, jeans, and t-shirts and underwear. That was the only thing I got to take when I left.
Not quite the same reason, but when I moved to Texas, I drove here and I couldn't afford to move my stuff. So I moved into a literal empty apartment as well. So I feel you.
Yes. So but essentially you're starting from scratch. Like you have nothing. And this past weekend, I was fortunate enough to get 2 days off back to back. So I basically hit the ground running, just going to different furniture stores, trying to furnish this place. And it's like the oddest setup. It's not like the biggest living room. It's not the biggest dining room. It's a small, like 1-bedroom condo. It's 800 square feet. So it's not massive at all by any stretch of the imagination. And on top of it, it's an odd layout. So originally, I have a lot of very strong, opinionated women in my life. My mother and my sister at the very, very forefront, and I value their opinions very, very much. So when I started to kind of put these things together, I asked them to come along with me, as well as another friend of mine. And as we're kind of going through trying to lay out this furniture for this room, it seemed like everything at Art Van and even at IKEA was just a little bit too big for it. But I ended up getting a couch, and I got some other furniture to kind of furnish the place. But I needed a washer and a dryer. I don't have any TVs like I'd mentioned before. So my sister knows a guy at ABC Warehouse.
That's a good way to start. Okay.
Yes, she knows a guy at ABC Warehouse. And this guy is taking care of her. He's taking care of my mom. My mom just bought a washer and dryer from him a little bit ago. He gave her a great deal. He hooked my sister up with her washer and dryer and a couple of her appliances. So he basically has taken care of everybody in my family. And I go there essentially to get a washer and a dryer. And really and truly, he basically sold me a washer and a dryer that is way too much for what I need. And going through the process of getting this, he's like, look, honestly, it's the best deal I can get you. I would recommend this because it's going to be way more than what you need and probably what you want, but you're going to get the best washer and dryer, and you're essentially going to pay the same price for anything less than that I could do for you. And I said, all right, cool. Let's run that. That's cool. And as I'm kind of walking around the store, as a man, you generally get sucked into the area by the TVs. It's just what happens. We had figured out how we wanted to lay the living room out, and it was totally different than what we originally had planned. I had a short wall that was roughly 66 inches long, and I could fit a 75-inch TV on there. And I was like, that would work great. That'd be no problem. You basically walk into the front room, and right there in front of you is this whole wall that's essentially taken up by a 75-inch TV. It'd be pretty great. But we scrapped that because we couldn't make the furniture work. We had this weird little dead zone. And after we kind of recalculated everything and kind of scrapped the original plan, we came up with this different idea to use the wall that the front door is on. So now I've got this massive wall. The way I measured it, I think it was like 160 some inches long. So in that case, right, I went from wanting a 65-inch TV to wanting a 75-inch TV to there being this badass Samsung QLED 85-inch TV that they were selling for roughly $5,000.
Oh my God.
And I was like, man, that is a badass TV.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Dude, you could buy a car.
Right. You could buy a car. So I'm like, that's a badass TV. And my mom's like, well, do you want to see how much it is? Because this is all you've been talking about is getting a big TV. And I was like, there's no way I can afford that. She's like, just let Armando do his thing. He'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. And I said, all right, no problem. So Armando comes by and he's like, you like that? And I was like, yeah. He's like, what's a good price that you'd pay for that? I was like, bro, these things are out of my budget. I was planning to spend no more than $1,200 on a TV, right? And he was like,
that's a lot of money.
That's a ton of money. That's a ton of money.
You can get a good TV for a really good TV for $500.
Absolutely. But like I had said the budget because this is gonna be like the one expense where I didn't mind shelling any money out for it. So I had set the budget for the living room TV at $1,200.
For the record, I furnished my apartment. Now I was able to bring some things in my car I had a bed here from a friend who like was literally about to throw out his bed. I furnished my entire apartment for less than $3,000.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I spent almost double that at ABC Warehouse. So,
well, you've been taking a while to get to it, Strohs. How much did you end up paying for the TV?
So he comes back to me and he has the number written down and he showed it to me and I was like, run it, just run it. Like I will take that. The dollar amount he showed me, I was like, that's a great deal. I'll take it. I spent $2,100 on an 85-inch QLED Samsung TV. I think it was the 7 series. So I think what they have now is like the 8 series out. So it's like
it's not even the most recent model.
No, like I couldn't afford the most recent one. I looked into it. It's bananas. So but it's honestly I'll tell you this much. It was a great deal because after I purchased it, I went and started doing even more research. And the cheapest I could get it was right around $3,000.
Well, that's because
maybe
people aren't willing to make a car purchase on a TV.
Yeah. So I bought an 85-inch TV, which is going to dominate my entire living room. I mean, dude, I got like a 50-inch TV. I've wanted a new TV, but like I just can't justify it. I mean, I know at the moment you're not in radio, but reminder, you don't make money in radio. So like you asked me, you don't make money. You don't make money managing a gym either. So this was like the dumbest purchase I think I've ever made.
Dude,
but
so
I'm going to enjoy it.
And I'm like trying to think of the worst impulse buy I've ever had, at least in my adult life, because you can't really have a dumb impulse purchase living with your parents, you know.
That's true. You really can't.
And I'm just, dude, I don't have one that's that bad. You know what came to mind? Having my appendix removed was my worst impulse buy.
Wait, what? Like how?
Having my appendix removed.
You didn't need it removed?
Thousands of dollars. Well, I mean, I needed it removed, but
that's not an impulse buy.
I did. Well, I didn't plan on it.
So either you're gonna die or you're not gonna die. What are you gonna do? That's no impulse buy. You basically had a drill to your nose, and they were like, "Hey, we're gonna take this out," and you're like, "Okay, great."
So there were two things I thought about. I thought about that because I couldn't afford that, and then the only other one is in May before I moved here, and this isn't really an impulse buy. I just decided to go to Seattle.
Oh yeah, you loved your Seattle trip though.
Oh, it was amazing. But like, dude, when I made that decision. Like, I think I booked a flight 6 weeks out in advance. And it was like, I decided I was going to go to Seattle. And within a week, I had the trip planned. And that whole trip, it probably cost me about $1,000. And I mean, I didn't save up for it. There's 100% no doubt, like, it was a terrible financial decision. And I had no business doing it. But much like you're saying, it was such a no-brainer. And it 100% was worth it in the end.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like things though, man, I don't think I haven't bought a thing as an impulse buy as an adult. Like I haven't even bought a gaming system. Dude, I can't think of anything.
Yeah. Like
$50 impulse buys would be like my limit in my adult life. And you're out here spending $2,000.
Yeah. I end up spending $5,300 at ABC Warehouse between my washer dryer. I ended up getting another TV for the bedroom and everything that kind of went along with it. I spent so much money, but I think I'm gonna be pretty happy with it. I'll be honest.
You could have done it for less than.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You did, but you had to furnish a whole apartment. The only major issue I have is like you spent $2,100 on an 85-inch TV. You could have probably gotten a 65-inch TV for $500.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
I haven't looked that deep into it, so maybe I'm undershooting it a little bit, but I'm not that far off. You still could have gotten a really nice TV for literally a quarter of the price.
I don't think you're undershooting it at all.
Do you notice the difference between the 85 and the 65? Like, is it a different world? Do you feel like you're watching a movie theater?
Yes.
Yeah. Also, by the way, it's kind of a weird time of year to make that purchase because, I mean, at least, you know, you mentioned guys find their way over the TVs.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, the best time to have that great TV is football season.
Yes.
So like it's like you know, we have basketball and hockey right now.
This is the only thing I can kind of hang my hat on is I'm a huge hockey fan. I love watching playoff hockey. And playoff hockey, there's something special about watching playoff hockey on a high def TV compared to standard def. And I think the bigger you go, the better it is. So when the playoffs roll around, I think it's going to be fantastic. And when you come back to town, because I know at some point you're going to come back to town, I'm going to have you over. You're going to sit on my white leather couch because I got a white leather couch because I'm bougie like that. And we're gonna watch whatever game is going on. And it's going to be a great time.
All right. There's no doubt I'm going to have to check out your 85-inch TV. I haven't done a good job about this in the practice squad 2.0, and bringing it back to life. But again, let us know on Twitter, what's your worst impulse purchase? And how do you feel about, I don't feel like mine was as bad. I need to know how you feel about Stroh's $2,100 85-inch TV when he could have gotten a nice TV for a quarter of the price.
I totally could have too. And I probably should have, because I'll be honest with you, after I spent all that money, I was kind of like, the next day I was like, man, you really shouldn't have did that. You shouldn't have did that.
I had the same thing with Seattle. And like, you could make the case, like, mine was a one-time trip. At least you continue to have yours. But I couldn't do a budget trip to Seattle. You know what I mean? Like, that's the big difference. You still could have gotten a nice TV for really cheap. But again, let us know on Twitter, at Adam R. Strohs, at Brendan Riley _ And we need to get into it now. The Detroit Pistons, I think, I'm not even willing to say I know, I think have officially signaled rebuild. So it's been a bit, but Andre Drummond is now gone.
Hooray.
Not much of a return for it. So I'm not here celebrating that, but I'm happy. I think we're looking at a rebuild. And something I've said to people, it's funny because I don't think I thought about it this way too much when I was in Grand Rapids. But whenever I talk basketball or if I talk Pistons here with people in Houston, the one thing I try to explain to them is the Pistons haven't gone into a season with the intention of long-term success since like the mid-2000s. I mean, seriously, think about it. What's the last time that you remember the Pistons trying to rebuild? It was like pre-going to work Pistons.
Yeah.
It was pre-2004 championship. It's 2020. I mean, there's not many teams in sports that can say they've been going into every season since the mid-2000s with the intention of winning it all that year. And I know the Pistons having the intention, but like they were going and trying to make the playoffs. I don't think every team can say that was the goal going into the season for that long. And this team hasn't even been able to do that. They made the playoffs in that span, 3 times? Well, I guess obviously the championships. Let me change that. They have made the playoffs twice since trading Chauncey back in, was it 2008, 2009. So I think they're signaling rebuild. And I think it brings apart a couple questions. The first one for me is, do you have faith? What is your level of faith in the front office in a rebuild? I'm kind of torn here because I still see a little bit of aspects of us. I'm nervous that we're still going to see aspects of a soft rebuild because they didn't move pieces like Derrick Rose, like Markieff Morris, like maybe Langston Galloway.
Luke Kennard was hot on the trade.
Yeah, block. I didn't really want to see him go. I didn't either. To trade him,
but dude, look, Phoenix was offering you a first-round pick. Who cares? You need draft capital. And I think Kennard's a piece you could possibly build around, but by no means do I think he's the be-all, end-all.
I don't either, but I don't think there's very many be-all, end-alls in this draft. I mean, I would have been okay if they traded Kennard, but when I'm trying to judge my faith in this front office, I'm just not going to have a significant reaction to Luke Kennard still being here. Derrick Rose and Markieff Morris are guys who, Derrick Rose specifically, I don't actually know if they could have gotten anything from Markieff Morris or not, but the reports were pretty clear. Somebody would have wanted Derrick Rose. Those are guys who are all about winning now. And yeah, there's some veteran leadership, but the thing is, like, this team, I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're 5-10 years away. I just don't think that's the way sports work. If the Pistons truly decided to enter a rebuild, 5 years is the long stretch, Like, Philly might have spent 5 years in a full-blown tank job. I think the Pistons are leaning further to the other side. I think they want to. Thankfully, they weren't willing to extend Drummond and pay him to just fight for a playoff spot. I still think they're trying to do this thing quickly. And we've had this conversation, basically this exact conversation before, just earlier on in this soft rebuild. I think the big thing to see is going to be, are they going to go out and spend this money in free agency now? Because with trading Andre Drummond and Reggie Jackson's contract coming up at the end of the year, they have a lot of money to work with. They're going to have $35 million. That's more than a max contract, depending on the max is very different depending on how long the guy's been in the league. Mm-hmm. But are they going to go out and spend it in what is an incredibly weak free agency? If they are smart enough to anything they spend be a very, short-term 1-year deal, maybe a 2-year deal here or there, so that there's no like financial restrictions to go out and make moves in the future, then I think like that's what I need to see. I'm at like a 5 out of 10 if you ask me on a scale. Like, I could buy that this regime is going to do it right, but I'm not confident.
I'm in the same boat as you because I have seen things that they've done, right? Like what is it? Mboye. It looks like he's a guy that you can kind of build around. You've got a couple of guys that they were able to kind of get later in the draft that have paid dividends. But all that being said, we still don't know who the general manager is. I think we all have an idea that it's Stefanski, but
I think
we
I
don't.
feel like they came out and said
know.
something about Stefanski is basically the guy. I can't remember.
It's one of those things where the way things have been handled with this organization the last couple of years makes me really, really hesitant and makes me really, really tepid. I don't trust Gores to not get involved. I really feel like he's hurt this team because no matter how you want to sell it to me, I think he was the reason that you went out and you got Blake. I think he was the reason that you ended up keeping Andre last year. I think Stefanski, if he is the one calling the shots, I think he missed tons of opportunities to move a guy like Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose has been injury prone his entire career, and this guy was playing great basketball the first half of the season. And by all accounts and by all the reports, contenders wanted him. And what a contender could give you is a late round first round draft pick or a late first round draft pick.
And the reports before he got hurt were that they wanted a lottery type pick.
Yeah. And I get that. But
where were you going to get that? Why was a lottery team going to trade for Derrick Rose?
They wouldn't. So at that point, you got to be smart enough to kind of negotiate a little bit. And if that means you got to settle for something, towards the back half of the draft, just do it, because you can just pair picks and move up if you want.
Well,
and
it's not easy to move up in the NBA draft.
No, it's not.
It's a lot easier in the NFL. But the thing is, something that this organization does seem to believe in lately. Well, they seem to value the cheap, inexpensive lottery ticket, the dart throw. And that a late first round draft pick can still be that. Do you expect to hit on it? No. But when you get them in volume, eventually you can get some cheap, controllable pieces. And that's the other question is what will and what should this look like? What it should look like is a lot of dart throws, because unfortunately, this team is still too talented to really be at the top of the draft. Now, you can always win the lottery, and they're going to be in a decent spot, but you really want a top 3 pick, a top 5 pick. And I'm not sure that the roster constructed right now is going to really give them a shot at a top 3 pick. So the only other way you do it is you start to accumulate volume, cheap guys, and you get a Bruce Brown who, Bruce Brown's no superstar, but he's very affordable. He's a role player for cheap, and you start to stack those guys up. I'll be really curious to see if they have any shot in hell at moving Blake Griffin. Each year that comes off the contract, I think it's a deal that gets more movable, but I think you missed the opportunity to move him last year, and I'm not sure that you're ever going to be able to do it again. Mm-hmm. And if you do, here's the thing. I would be okay, and not okay. I'd actually be happy if they could move Blake Griffin in a similar they did with Andre. I don't need to see the Pistons get anything of value in return. So it looks like, I'm just looking at it right now, after this year, Blake has one more year at $36 million, and then he has a player option, I believe it is, in 2022 for $39 million. It's hard to imagine anyone's giving him $39 million. So you basically got a 2-year contract because he's going to opt into that. With 2 years left, can you get somebody who says, like with Drummond, we're willing to give it a shot, for nothing? Because that's the kind of move that pushes this team closer to a top pick and gets even more money off the books. I mean, right now the Pistons already have the money to go out and make a max, sign a max. And moving Blake Griffin starts to put you in the conversation of 2. Do I think they lure one in free agency? Probably not, but I think you want it to at least be on the table. And here's the other thing. I was thinking about this the other day, Strohs. There's these issues now in Philly with Joel Embiid, and I don't think they're going to want to trade him. But, that's why you need cap space. Well, what if Philly decided to move on from Joel Embiid? That's the kind of player you would want to bring here. And you can't do it when you don't have cap space.
No, I agree with you. And here's the thing. The way I think it should look is very similar to you. A lot of dart throws. But I want as much draft capital as possible, because I think the way this team needs to build is through the draft. You've got to go find your guys, and you've got to get your guys to work. And then, like you said, you need that cap space, because what it's going to take is probably one guy realizing what's going on in wanting to come here, and you're going to have to pay them because free agents don't want to come to Detroit to play.
I'd be nervous of overpaying a guy. I think the thing is,
but if it's that one piece who puts you over the top, are you really overpaying?
No. But well, I mean, that's the thing. I think you probably have to add the first one via trade.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
If you get a guy like an Embiid via trade, I think getting somebody in free agency becomes a little bit more of an option. The current Pistons, I don't know why anybody of value would want to come here. The kind of guy, your ideal free agent as the Pistons, look at what the Knicks did with Marcus Morris.
Yep.
They went out and signed a guy who ended up being a value contract, who ended up being a valuable piece that they were able to move at the deadline. Kind of sounds like Derrick Rose. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's fair to point out Derrick Rose can still be traded next year or in the offseason. And if they do that, I don't think you mind as much if they waited to trade him at this deadline. I think what you get frustrated is if he's still here all of next year.
Yes. No, at that point, I think we really have to start looking at the front office and being like, what the hell's going on here, guys? You know, whether he wants to be here or not, he shouldn't be here next year.
But that's what free agency needs to look like for the Pistons. You need to be trying to find guys, you know, I feel like you see it in baseball probably more than anywhere, but you can do it in any sport. You need to be trying to find guys in free agency who you think you have a shot to flip at the deadline. And if you don't, you know, Derrick Rose, again, a great example, only a 2-year deal. If it doesn't work out, it's not something that's weighing you down. It's not something that's immovable. I have a feeling in this rebuild, it's going to be a long time before we know how we feel about their ability to do it. At least they're headed that direction. But I could see Strohs, I could see like a year and a half from now, or let's just say a year from now, you know, around the deadline of next year, sitting here and going, yeah, kind of need to see what they do at the deadline before I'm willing to totally buy in on this rebuild.
Dude, I'm in lockstep with you. And again, it's just
funny. Don't do that very often.
I know, but you know, especially
on the Pistons.
I was gonna say, since we've come back together, I feel like we've agreed more than we've disagreed, which is weird.
Well, we haven't talked during football season.
That's
a whole lot
true.
Yet, so
that's true because we have totally
see what happens next year.
But no, man. Look, when it comes to this team, and I honestly, I think it's just you don't really trust this front office right yet, and it's just because it doesn't feel like they've hit home runs, you know? You might have a couple guys who you can build around and you're like, okay, cool. So that gives you hope for the future. But when you look at kind of what happened at the trade deadline this year, I mean, you traded Andre for essentially a bag of balls. It sounded like at the time the Atlanta Hawks were willing to give you a first-round pick as well as some other pieces, and you basically said no. So, like, I don't know exactly what they were looking for, what they expected, and there were recent interviews with Stefanski where he was like, it takes two to kind of tango here. And I get that, but you've got guys who are essentially going to walk out the door. And if you ask me, it's one of those things where you want to move anybody of value. Maybe not right now, maybe next year, but you want to move on from guys of value because you essentially want to tank. You want to give yourself as many chances at as many ping pong balls to get as high up in this draft as possible, because it's going to take a player from the lottery to, I think, really help catapult this rebuild and really help turn it on its head and get it headed in the right direction. And I'll be honest with you, I like what Stefanski has done as far as his player evaluation. What he's done in the draft does give me a little bit of hope for the future.
That's fair. They haven't hit a home run in the draft, but you got to remember this team hasn't drafted, you know.
Exactly.
I got to look this up. When's the last time they drafted top 8?
I'm going to pull it up right now. I'm looking.
I mean, when you think about the fact that the Pistons haven't drafted high, you know they haven't drafted top 3 or even top 5. But like, so Stanley Johnson in 2015 was the last time they picked in the top 8.
Okay, there you go.
Caldwell Pope was 8 as well in 2013. But how about this? They haven't picked in the top 7 since 2010. Greg Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this team hasn't had those top couple picks, and there's very, very few guys, and it happens, but there's very few guys who end up being franchise changers outside of the top 5 or so.
Yep.
So he's done a good job adding what he can with the picks he's had.
I think what he's done. You just go back to the 2018 draft, right? He picked up Kyrie Thomas and Bruce Brown. I don't think either one of those guys are game changers. I don't think they're going to set the world on fire. But those are guys who you can pull off your bench. You can plug them in. They're guys who are going to give you stops on defense. They're guys who are going to force turnovers and they're going to help grind down the other team. So that way, when you go back to your starters, you guys are going to have a shot to get a lead. You're going to have a shot to maintain a lead. I think that they have guys here. Like, honestly, and a lot of this just kind of falls on what's going to happen with Sekou. If Sekou blossoms to be an actual star, and maybe not a superstar, but a legitimate star in the league, I think that's a bit of a game changer because they've already talked about he's ahead of schedule. Like, they did not anticipate him being this far ahead. And he has shown at times during games where he looks legitimate. You know what I'm saying? And then you've got other pieces that have kind of complemented him with Svi. I think Svi's been a solid find for this team. But it's one of those things where you are going to have to add more guys, and you're going to have to hit a home run, like you said, in that top 8, in that top 7, in the top 5, if you're lucky enough to draft there. You're going to have to hit a home run with one of these guys. And you're going to have to be able to pair them with a guy like Sekou. And that's going to help move this forward.
I want to play a fun game real quickly before we wrap this up, Strohs, because I think 5 is where I really draw the line as far as you want to get a guy in the top 5 to have a shot at that franchise changer.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the last 3 players the Pistons have taken in the top 5?
Last 3 players they've taken in the top 5?
Yeah, top 5.
So Darko, I think, was 2.
Yep.
Man.
And, of course, play along at home, see if you can figure it out. Do you have any guess on the second one?
I want to say Isaiah Thomas.
So he is one of the 3. There's someone in between there. And Isaiah Thomas.
Oh, Grant Hill. Was it Grant Hill?
Yes, it was Grant Hill. Good job. I don't think I could have done that. Just because it's going all the way back to 81. I hadn't been born for 12 years yet. So,
dude, the Grant Hill Pistons, I loved Grant Hill. I loved Grant Hill. Grant Hill Pistons were very good. What's that?
Just to give you an idea. I said it's just to give you an idea of how long it's really been since this team's had a chance to get that franchise-changing guy. But that's going to wrap it up. Sorry we missed last week. I got to tell you, I missed it too.
I apologize, guys. Thank you for being patient with us. My grandpa passed away early last week, and then the way the schedule kind of fell didn't really allow us a chance to get into the studio to record. So on me, I'm sorry. B, thank you for being patient with me. And,
you're good, man.
And allowing us to skip that week. That's on me. My bad, man.
And, of course, again, anything you want to talk about from this podcast, at Adam Marstrohs, at Brendan Riley _ on Twitter. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. This is the Practice Squad.